the document that was released by the Pope, which is the Bull of Indiction, which has the theme, Hope Does Not Disappoint, Spes Non Confundit. On this program today, as usual, I am always joined by Father Arthur Ntembula, who is going to help us discuss the topic of the day, which is suffering and endurance, finding hope in trials. Not to go any further, Father, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Grace. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right, and good morning to our viewers and listeners, Lumen TV and Radio Maria.
Okay.
Yeah.
How has it been for you, like, in the new year?
Well, the new year, I should say, has started at a good note, with a lot of hope for many good things to come. But we are never short of challenges. Challenges are always there. That's why today we have to talk about suffering and hope, not just suffering, because we don't want to be carriers of bad news. We also want to give hope that yes, even if there is suffering, but there is also hope for a better tomorrow. So yeah.
Well, just like Father said, that every storm has got a sunny day at the end. So, our dear viewers, I am your presenter for today, Grace Kasapato. I won't be joined with my co-presenter, Mr. Stephen, due to some unforeseen circumstances. We also apologize that we're not able to air this program last week due to some unforeseen circumstances that we had faced. But we're here to talk about this topic. Hope you're ready for us and you're ready for the topic. You're ready to learn. Okay, so Father, hope, finding hope in trials, suffering and endurance. This topic for the day, it's going to have a little bit of emotions, I'm sure, for you, for the viewers, because we all have been through a lot of suffering and endurance, and also trying to find hope in trials. Father, what do you have to say about this topic of the day today? What role does suffering play in growing, in shaping the personal growth and transformation in an individual?
Many people look at suffering as as a dead end. Like when you find yourself in a predicament, that becomes the end of the road. Like there's nothing beyond that. Do you know why some people would even go into depression, and later on for some even suicide? Because suffering for many is like the end of the road. Remember what happened to Jesus when he died on the cross.
Yes.
First he suffered and then he died on the cross, and many people thought that was the end. Like, okay, we can as well just go to our normal business, because this person we were following has died, and he was buried, and they put a huge stone on the entrance of the tomb, and that was it. But then they were surprised when they received news that his body was no longer in the tomb. Had it been stolen by somebody? What happened? How could a body just disappear like that? The resurrection in itself teaches us that suffering is not the end of the road. Suffering is a phase. It is a phase to another phase. It is a tunnel through which one has to pass. When Jesus suffered and died on the cross and was buried, that was a tunnel to his resurrection. He had to suffer and die and be buried for him to resurrect. He could not skip that stage, that phase. You cannot resurrect if you have not died. Grace, you have to die before you resurrect. Otherwise, we would think you are a mfwiti. So Jesus has...
this hope when we're suffering, according to Romans 5:3-4, which says, not only, but we also we also grow in our suffering, because we know that suffering produces perseverance and character and hope. How can we build this hope? How can we persevere? How can we be able to thrive out of suffering, Father?
Maybe the question should be, can we even thrive?
Can we even thrive?
Is it even possible to have hope when you are right in the middle of things, in the midst of things, when you are overwhelmed by suffering? When you think about that, you can easily say it is not possible, or it is very difficult. And I agree to that. It is very difficult. But is it possible? Yes, it is possible. It is possible because it all has to do with how you take suffering, how you look at your suffering. St. Paul, in the text that you recited, he's saying, for the apostles, trials and tribulations mark the lives of those who preach the gospel amid incomprehension and persecution. Yet in those very contexts, beyond the darkness, we glimpse a light. So, what is your attitude towards the cross that you carry? Because that is what is going to determine whether you are going to build hope or not. Are you going to build hope or not? What is going to determine that is how you look at your own suffering. Like we are saying, for some people, suffering is the dead end. Apa mimi nafika manje hapa kwa sira jabe
Senje mwamene tiriri cha besti
yambe chena kulaira mkasale mkondana ine naenda mwambo nalimba tuma status pa Facebook pachani, it was nice meeting you, it was nice what this is somebody that has completely lost hope because they've taken their own suffering as the dead end. But when St. Paul is writing to the Romans, the language he's speaking is this is possible for a Christian. It is possible to go through this cross, to go through this hardship for a Christian. But this does not put a full stop to one's life. It is a springboard to something else. It is a tunnel, a phase to another level. And that is how we have to take suffering for us to build hope. Otherwise, if you look at suffering as the end of the road, then there is no hope at all.
In what way, Father, can endurance during trials help us develop resilience and strength? Because when you're in the midst of trials, you are there, you don't know what to do. How do you stay composed? How do you hold yourself on? Because this thing is breaking you apart.
I think it must have been in the second episode when we said when you are going through something and it is eating you up, it is overwhelming you, do not isolate yourself. Do not isolate yourself, because once you do that, it means that you are putting a full stop to your life. There are people out there. There are other people that can help you. Talk to somebody, talk to your friend, talk to your priest, talk to your pastor if you are not Catholic. Talk to somebody, talk to a trusted family member, talk to somebody. They will help you to endure that suffering, to persevere. When we reflect on the life of the first Christians and what they went through, you realize that for them to give us the Christianity that we have today, they had to endure the suffering that they went through. They had to stand strong, to stand firm, regardless of how much wind was blowing. They had to stand firm. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had the Christianity we enjoy today. They had to stand strong, and the suffering that they went through is nothing compared to some of the sufferings that we go through ourselves. Because. Anyway, let us not compare but it's nothing compared, because what they went through had many times had to do with blood. Okay, they saw their colleagues being killed. You didn't know whether you were the next to be killed or not, for just believing in Jesus. And that to stand, they had an opportunity to denounce their faith, but they had to stand strong in that, to persevere. The question you're asking here is about perseverance, endurance, okay? But not just persevering for its own sake, not just enduring for its own sake. It is enduring as a Christian for Jesus, persevering as a Christian and persevering for Jesus, not just and by the way, when you talk about persevering, when you talk about endurance, we're not talking about one putting themselves in fire in order to test their own strength. We're talking about, in fact, we should have said this at the beginning, that the suffering we're talking about here is not deliberate kind of suffering, okay, where you know that this is fire and you put yourself right in the midst of that fire, because that is going to crush you. Many times we go through suffering that just find us along the way. Unfortunate situation. And the document that we are reviewing is tilted more on that type of suffering, where you just unfortunately find yourself in this thing, and then you don't know what to do. How do you handle that situation? How do you come out of it? How do you build faith? How do you persevere? How do you allow yourself as a Christian to endure that suffering? We have met a lot of people that have met calamities and you don't see them at church anymore. They stopped coming. They stopped attending any religious activity. They stopped doing anything religious. They stopped praying. You go to their house, they even put down the pictures of Jesus, the pictures of Mary and everything, because they are so disappointed with God that they don't want to have anything to do with God. And you are there, you have to say something to them to build their own, their hope, to build their faith in the midst of that suffering. It's always a challenging situation. But as Christians, we have to do what we have to do. And what we have to do in the midst of suffering is, first of all, to endure, to persevere as Christians, but most importantly, and for our own purposes, to build hope in the midst of suffering, which is not easy.
Well, Father, this is a person, we have a leader, okay? This person is leading a certain group of people, and this person is within this trial. He's going through this trial alone. These are people that barely have somebody to call upon when they're going through something. We know most of our leaders, most of the people that lead us, even parents in our homes, barely have somebody to talk to. What would you tell them? How can they persevere? How can they be strong through this trial? Maybe they have a child who's not listening to them. This child is just going overboard. You know how these things bother parents. How can that parents keep themselves together? How can they build that faith? How can they keep the hope?
St. Paul tells us nothing can separate us from the love of God. No suffering, no death, nothing can separate us from the love of God. So if you are that person that does not have anybody to talk to, and that must be a very rare case, well, let's take it that you have nobody at all to talk to about what you are going through. Remember what Paul says, nothing can and should separate us from the love of God. Is it trial? Is it suffering? Is it a problematic marriage? Is it a problematic child, problem child? Is it joblessness? Is it disease? Is it death after death in the family? Is it some kind of economic hardship? Whatever that could be. Remember these words, nothing can and should separate you from the love of God. So your anchor in this case is the love of God. The love that God still has for you, even in the midst of the things that are going through. God is still saying something about your life and upon your life, and it is up to you to be open to what God is trying to reveal. It is true that there is always a reason for something. Suffering is not suffering for its own sake. If you are able to open your eyes of faith, you'll be able to see beyond that suffering. And once you you develop the art of seeing beyond the suffering. That in itself helps you to build hope, to build faith, to tell yourself, regardless of what I'm going through, there is a bigger picture. There is this that God is trying to tell me, and I am not going to separate myself from His love. I'm not going to isolate myself from the church, from the Christian community, because that is where I am going to find a seed, or have the seed that will help me to build what I seem to be losing now, and which is hope. So, if you don't have anybody to talk to, in the first place, you must have somebody to talk to. Okay, but if you do not have anybody to talk to, remember the words: nothing can and should separate you from the love of God.
Well, Father, what differentiates? What difference is there between suffering that teaches us lessons and suffering that becomes a barrier? Because you'll find that maybe I did something, like you said, to say maybe I did something at church that got everybody's attention, and now I'm failing to go to church. That has become a barrier. I'm suffering, it has become a barrier. And then there's this suffering where it's teaching me something. What's the difference between those two sufferings?
All sufferings teach us something. Okay, if we want to learn something from suffering, we'll realize that suffering will teach us something. Now, coming back to your question, you see, there is no suffering that in itself is going to act as a barrier, but you become a barrier yourself to yourself. Suffering is suffering; it is just that. Your attitude towards it is what now gives it morality. You become a barrier, or you don't become a barrier to what you're supposed to be through that suffering. It is true that some people will look at certain types of suffering as a barrier, and that is why they run into depression. Once your suffering takes that form, that status of a barrier, it means it blocks you. It blocks you in many ways. And since you allow it to start blocking you in that manner, you cannot see the bigger picture. You're not able to see what lies beyond it, and that in itself does not help you to build hope for tomorrow, for a better tomorrow. You cannot wake up today and tell yourself, maybe yes, today I'm still suffering, but tomorrow could be a better day, because you have allowed what you're going through to be a barrier to block you. Any suffering can actually be a barrier. We don't even have to draw a line between this suffering and that suffering. Any suffering can become a barrier. It all depends on how you look at that particular suffering.
Okay.
There are people who, we go through different types of sufferings. Your suffering and my suffering are different. Your suffering could be big for you, okay? Could be huge for you, could be intense for you. But if I were to participate in that suffering myself, it would be different. I would take it differently. It would not even be enough to crush me, because of the way I have taken it. You have taken it as a big suffering, as a barrier, as we are saying. You have taken it as this thing that is not allowing you to progress. But if I were to be given an opportunity to have that same suffering, for me maybe it would be a springboard to something else. For me, maybe it would be a moment to learn something about myself and about my faith. It would be a moment to build something that I didn't seem to have before. So I would use that suffering in a positive manner, if we can put it that way. And therefore, it is possible to rejoice even in suffering. The matters some of the matters when they were being burned to death, they were even smiling. Telling their persecutors, to say, why are you just burning one side? You have to tell me so to burn the other side as well, because like this I'm not burning properly. So suffering becomes a moment of joy. Like you don't see it as suffering anymore. So
we should actually look at suffering as a lesson, no matter whatever suffering we're going through, it should be a lesson.
There's something that suffering is trying to say about you. Okay, there's whatever you need to have the eyes that see that. You need to have to see beyond what is happening, because if you're not able to see beyond what is happening, the only thing that you're going to see is suffering. That's all. And then you'll be complaining to everybody and everywhere. It's like the whole world is crumbling upon you, because all you are seeing is this big barrier, this suffering in front of you. But if you develop a different attitude, you begin to look at what you're going through as an opportunity to learn something about yourself and about God, then you realize that your suffering takes a different shape, a different form, and it helps you in the long run to even build your hope. You will not even withdraw from the Christian community. You will not withdraw from the world to suffer alone. You even with your hunger, nanjala yako, you still go to church and sing and dance, and nobody will even know that you have not eaten for 3 days.
Well, Father, you talked about hope, suffering that will build hope. So does hope only exist where there are trials, or is it appreciated even without trials? Is there hope
many
without
times?
trials?
Well, many times the issue of hope comes in when there is something that is creating discomfort. Yeah, it doesn't matter the size of that or the depth of whatever that is. Many times hope is going to come when there's some discomfort, wankala pampando, so that's why wankala panyeleti, it causes some discomfort, so you have to wavala nsapato kansi mulika mwala munsapato, and it begins to to cause some kind of discomfort. That's when the issue of hope comes in. Let's go back to the reason why the Holy Father has given us this document. Hope does not disappoint. This document is inspired by the happenings in the world. That is what necessitates the document. The happenings in the world, everywhere, the hungers that are there in the world, the wars, the diseases that are not even explainable. Now we are talking about issues of climate change, and it is everywhere. So there's a lot of desperation in the world. People are losing it. People are losing their faith, because they're asking questions like, how can all these things be happening if there's a God? And this question was quite prominent during the COVID times. Yeah, when COVID was at its peak, the question was, how can this be happening if there is a God? So all these things, all these happening in the world, necessitate the document. Hope does not disappoint, meaning that we could be passing through all these things, but there is still hope for hope, if we can put it that way. That these things are not the final definition of whatever is happening or of our life. We cannot put a full stop, because God is not yet done with us. God is not putting a full stop to our life. These things are just a springboard. These things are just a tunnel. They're just a phase. But we have to allow ourselves to pass through all these things so that we learn something about ourselves, about life in general, and most importantly, about our relationship with God. In Bemba we say, it is when you go through a hardship that you begin to think properly. Some of us think properly when we are suffering. Yeah. When we are broke, that's when we have business plans. That's when we have plans that we have never devised before. That's when we think like once the money.
I can start a business with a 5 quid.
Yeah, because you are broke. But
yeah.
But once money starts coming, I don't know, whatever happens, then the plans begin to disappear. But so when you are suffering, that's when now you realize that there's something to learn about this. And how do I get out of this situation? Look at what COVID has taught us. Personally, I never knew about Zoom meetings. Yeah, I never knew about having following mass on Facebook. And many people came to know about these things during the COVID time. That's when we realized, so mass can be streamed, so we can follow mass from home, because COVID could not allow us to go out. And not only that, we became even more careful in terms of hygiene and all that. And even now, many of us are still, with that care towards hygiene, and we don't want to, because there's something that we have learned from that moment. So every suffering is trying to say something about ourselves, about the way we relate with one another, about the way we relate with another person. But in the final analysis, it is also saying something about my relationship with God. So it is possible to be hopeful in the midst of suffering. It is possible to keep my faith in the midst of suffering, because the suffering that I'm going through at that particular moment is saying something about my relationship with God. I need to have the eyes to see what it is trying to say.
So my question was, Father, is there hope without suffering?
Yes, yeah. Is there hope without suffering? There is a bit of it.
Without any trials?
Without any trials.
I'm not going through any crisis, but I'm just having the hope.
You are very happy, you have a fat bank account, your business is thriving, family life is good. If you're in school, you are passing all your exams. Now, I said there is an element of hope. The type of hope that we can talk about in that context is the hope to improve yourself. If my business, for example, is making 1,000 kwacha per week, well, I could be content with that. I could be happy with that. My business is making 1,000 per week. It's not bad. It's good. But I don't want to remain there. I want to move. Maybe I should try and make 1,500 per week. So in that sense, hope becomes that element which pushes me to I hope, let us put it this way, I hope I can make more. I hope I can be happier. I am happy and I'm okay, but being happier would be a good idea as well. My family life is going good. My work is going good. I'm being promoted and all that. But I've not yet arrived. This is not my final destination. So there's nothing wrong with hoping for a happier life. And it doesn't even mean that you are not happy with what you have now. You are happy, you are content, but you want to improve on yourself. So you hope you could do more. You hope you could have more and more. So yeah, there is hope without trials.
Okay.
But the biggest hope we are talking about here is when you are in the midst of things, thicket of suffering. Okay, I hope to come out of this thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Father, how can a Christian community support one another in fostering hope through challenges of life?
As human beings, we are relational by nature. We exist with other people, whether in the secular world or in the church. And in this case, your question is about the Christian community. In the church, we are, the family, Lumen, the document in the Second Vatican Council, it talks about the church as a family of God. Okay? The church is a family of God. As a family, it means that the members of the family stay together, they stick together, they relate, they have a friendship, they have a relationship. So you will not belong to a Christian community without taking into account the fact that you do not exist with other people. You exist with other people, and in that community you exist with those people, other members of the community. So within that community then, each individual has their own life. Okay, each individual is passing through whatever they're passing through. What is important for that community is to be present in the life of each other. for them to build solidarity, and that is what creates a community of hope. When you build solidarity, when you're concerned about what this one is experiencing in their life, what this one is going through, if this one has a patient at the hospital, be concerned as a community. How is the patient doing? When can we come and see the patient? That is what is going to build solidarity and hope. The idea here is to create a family where members do not exist in isolation, but they exist as a community of hope. That's why it is important for one who is going through something not to isolate themselves from the Christian community. Of course, there are always elements, even in the Christian community, that are not so good. But by and large, a Christian community is a community where one can get support, where one can be comforted, where one can get even financial assistance in some cases, because people now put resources together in order to help this brother, this sister who is going through whatever they're going through. So, as Christians, our invitation is, first of all, to create a community of hope, where each member feels, yes, this is where I belong and this is where I get my support. But also, it is important that as a Christian, we create solidarity. We create a family. Lumen Gentium is clear. A family. We create a family. And in a family, every member is concerned about what the other is going through.
Okay. So
I hope I got your question right. Did I leave out anything?
Not really. You didn't leave out anything. How can a community help one person to endure during suffering?
Be concerned as a community. You see, unfortunately, especially in Mnomutauni, where you have some communities, the majority of the members drive. So they will come to the Christian community. They do the Christian community business and all. After it is done, everybody goes to their vehicles and they disappear. Yes, they leave without maybe even sticking around to find out about how this lady is, how this man is, how is everyone doing and all that. They just came for smoke some community business. Next week we're going to have braai. This seminarian fund is so much, so we need to add more money. The pastoral fund is just business. But what about the life of each member, especially those members that are open enough to share what they are going through? How is the community helping them? So it is important for the community or members of the community to express genuine concern towards this person who is going through whatever they are going through. And that is one of the ways actually that will help the community to keep members. When people feel they are valued, regardless of their status, regardless of what they are going through, they are valued, they feel they have a sense of belonging, they will have a reason to stay. So, as a community, be concerned about what is happening in the life of each of your members, especially those that are open enough to say what they are going through. Be present and move yourselves into action.
Okay. Our dear listeners and viewers, we are live on Lumen TV Zambia as well as Yasani Voice. We would like to hear what you've learned. You can comment on our Facebook pages. You can write a message. You can send them through so that Father can answer them in the next episode that we'll be having, because this is a continuation of episodes so that we can finish the bull of induction that we have. We have about 13 episodes that are here to help us so that we can discuss the topics that we have. We'll have 13 episodes, and on each episode we have different topics that we'll be discussing so that you can learn, so that I can learn, so that the community can learn about this particular document. Father, as we wrap up, what are your words? If I say last words, it will feel like maybe you'll be...
I'm dying.
Yeah, it will feel like I'm persecuting.
I'm not dying.
Concluding remarks, Father.
Yeah, I want to end with a statement that we can get from the Book of Induction itself. Space not confunded. So the Pope in that document says, beyond the darkness, we glimpse a light. Beyond the darkness, we glimpse a light. It's like you're driving or walking or riding or cycling in a tunnel, okay? And then it's a long tunnel. There's no hope for seeing the end. But once you begin to see the light at the end of the tunnel, that gives you even more energy to if you are cycling or to walk on, to run, in order to reach that, because that glimpse of the light becomes your source of hope. And we can say the same about suffering. Suffering is like darkness. It's like a moment of darkness, but this moment of darkness is not the final definition of your life. It's not a dead end, like we've been saying. It's not a full stop to your life. There should be a light at the end of the tunnel. And that's why in the document, the Holy Father is saying, beyond the darkness we glimpse a light. The world could be going through whatever it is going through: climate change, wars in some places, hungers, diseases, etc., etc. But there is something beyond this darkness, and that is what we have. That is why we have to continue hoping. They say hope is the last thing to lose. You have to continue hoping, because definitely there is a glimpse of light after this darkness. We are in darkness, but after this darkness, there is a glimpse of light. We have to keep our hope flashing, our hope on, for us to be able to walk on or crawl on or run on until we reach that destination, that end of the tunnel. Because once we reach that end of the tunnel and we see a whole, not just a glimpse, but a whole light, that will help us even to forget about the darkness of the tunnel. So hope is the last thing to lose.
Okay, Father, thank you very much. Our dear listeners and viewers, hope you have learned something from today's discussion, because today's discussion has at least to touch one or two or three out there. Myself, I have been touched, I have learned. Hope you as well, you have learned that in every suffering, in every trial, always keep your hope, always keep that light burning. At every time, you should always have your hope. Always remember that the Bible and Jesus Christ is always here for you whenever you're going through any trials. Always look up to Jesus Christ, and he will always be there for you. Always remember that hope does not disappoint. Me, Grace Kasapato, and Father Arthur at this particular time, I say join us next Tuesday at the same time, same place. For now, it's bye.
Right. Thank you.